part of your approach to evolving performance management in your organization is asking the question about whether or not to drop ratings. This leads to another question, which is, if we get rid of ratings, then how will we make pay decisions? It's absolutely possible, and I'm going to show you how. This video is going to describe an approach to making pay for performance decisions in the absence of ratings. When I say ratings, I mean the traditional 1 through 5 level ratings: meets expectations, exceeds expectations, etc. The very first step in determining pay without ratings is having some sort of metric in place to measure employee performance. In another video, I describe how I use the employee performance continuum to measure employee performance, thinking about two dimensions of performance. One is work results. What is the person accomplishing in terms of their job responsibilities and their goals? And then observable behaviors. In terms of work results, anybody who's above this mid-level line is on target in terms of the work that they're producing. Below the mid-level line, the person's either growing because they're new to the role and with more time and training they're tracking up, or they're not new to the role and their performance is low despite having been in the job long enough. And right of center in terms of behaviors are on target, expected behaviors. Left of center we would say are off target, unexpected behaviors that detract from the employee's overall value and more than likely will slow the work of others. So when we think about where we plot individuals on the continuum, in the very top right hand corner we would have our top performers, and then also in the top right hand corner we would have solid performers or high accountable employees. The work is getting done. This is the idea when we're doing performance management, is we want people headed towards the top right hand corner. Here's the individual who's new to the role and growing. Here's the individual who is not new to the role. They are on target in terms of their behaviors, but their results are lower than expected. More than likely, the people who are operating in the top right are absorbing this individual's job responsibilities. And then in the top left, we have the person who's above the mid-level line in terms of the work they're getting done, but left of center in terms of behavior, meaning that there's some sort of behavior that's making the person less effective than they could or they should be. And in the lower left, we have a combination of off-target behaviors and low performance, where this is not the individual who's tracking up. This shows an example of a completed continuum. You can see that there were 70 people in total who were plotted. The next step is establishing how much money there is to allocate in terms of pay increases, bonus, and even market pay adjustments. The finance department has to allocate and forecast how much money is going to be set aside for pay increases. And the typical approach to calculate that is by taking the total payroll dollars. So let's say in this example, payroll is $3 million a year, and then multiplying that by a percentage. Most commonly that's 3%. So what this gives us is a total of $90,000 to allocate within the organization, and that usually goes towards merit, which means the pay increase, bonus if there is a bonus, and sometimes even making pay adjustments in cases where you may have an employee who's being paid below the market rate. So the $90,000 is the big pot of money, and then that gets distributed to various departments and budget holders. They will then determine how they're going to spend that money within their organization. If you're using the continuum to measure employee performance, you could use this model to help managers decide on pay recommendations. We have two dimensions. We have the performance dimension and we have the salary range dimension. The salary range dimension is based on where the person is in terms of their position with regard to market pay, or maybe you have an internal equity system that you use, but for the employee in their position, are they at the minimum range in terms of their pay, mid, maximum, or maybe they're above their salary pay range? This is just an example of recommended pay increases. So anybody who is a solid performer or one of your top performers, you can see the higher we go in the top right-hand corner, the bigger the pay increase possibilities. And the pay increase could include merit pay, it could include bonus, it could also include market adjustment. And you'll notice in the lower right-hand corner, of course, the recommendations are less because either the person's new to their role and they're tracking up, and if they're new to the role, perhaps they've already received a pay increase if they were promoted internally to a bigger position, or they came in from the outside and perhaps they're missing this salary administration period. Or you could also have the person who has on-target behaviors, and despite making an earnest effort, they are not being fully productive in terms of their work results, and you could consider giving no pay increase. In all likelihood, this person should be on a performance improvement plan. And then I go to the top left, and here we have the individual who is getting the work done. The work results are there, but there's some sort of behavior that's off. And again, these are just my examples in terms of the numbers. You could play around with the numbers to come up with something that makes sense in your organization. And then, of course, in the lower left, I would say that anybody who's performing in this spot here should be on a performance improvement plan, and I would consider giving no pay increase. And when you think about somebody that you have who's one of your top performers and they're paid in the minimum, you're going to consider a bigger increase. You might also have one of your top performers who's at the mid or the max or even above their salary range. So what you'd probably do is give them maybe some merit, or maybe most of their pay increase would come in as a bonus so that it doesn't impact their base pay. If you're really walking away from traditional performance review ratings, I would recommend providing merit pay increases as a dollar amount versus a percentage. And part of your pay policy could read something like adjustments in pay are reflected in the March paychecks as a dollar amount. This way, the manager gets to say, thanks, Jim, for your hard work. You're going to see a $3,000 increase in your pay this year versus thanks, Jim, you're going to see a 2.5% increase in your pay. My hope is that you will see a way to decide pay increases without having the traditional performance review ratings. And you still need a way to differentiate and measure performance. Don't just get rid of ratings and not have a way of measuring performance. And you'll also know what your pay budget is. So, of course, we're limited by how many dollars we have to spend. But if you truly have identified your top performers, you'll know where to spend the money. And the rest of the year, you should be working with the individuals who are outside of the top right-hand corner, helping them move towards higher levels of performance. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions or comments.